Okay, so let us now try to solve the exercises at the end of section 5.3. So the first exercise asks us that there is a non-zero ring with unit element and the ring is not necessarily commutative, such that its only right ideals are the zero ideal and the ring itself. Then we have to prove that the ring is a division ring. Now the condition that the ring is non-zero is actually not given in the text, but we need it. Without R being non-zero, if R is the zero ring, then it cannot be a division ring, right? And by the way, if we recall the definition of a division ring, it is a ring in which the non-zero elements form a group under multiplication. Okay, so let us see how this can be solved. Let us first try to show that every non-zero element in the ring has a multiplicative inverse. So we start by assuming a non-zero element. Let A not equal to 0 be any element in R. Okay. One can show that the subset AR, which is defined to be the set of all elements in the ring of the form A times R, where R is a ring element, is a right ideal of R. Now in this regard, if you recall, we have actually come across a similar set, not AR but RA, where A is any element in the ring, and the definition of this was also similar. Here the only difference is that we were considering elements of the form RA, where R belongs to R. And we proved that this is a left ideal of R. Okay, a storm is raging outside, that's why this thunder. And we did this in a previous exercise. Let us just mention that. See exercise 14 of the previous section. If you look at the solution to this exercise, you will see that showing that AR is a right ideal is somewhat similar. I mean exactly similar. The only thing is that there we had RA, here we have AR, that's all. Okay. Now we use the hypothesis that the ring has only two right ideals. Hence, by our hypothesis, this right ideal is either equal to the zero ring or it is equal to R. Okay, so this much we have got. Now next we use the fact that the ring has a unit element. Since R has a unit element, so A can be written as A times 1, and this will belong to AR. So we see that the element A is in this right ideal AR, and A is non-zero. That means AR cannot be equal to the zero ring. since A is non-zero, we cannot have AR equal to 0. That means we must have AR equal to R. Again we use the fact that R has a unit element. So that means since the unit element is in R, the unit element will be a multiple of A by some ring element. Since, or there is no need to write. I mean, we can write within brackets if we want. Hence, AB is equal to 1 for some ring element B. We can write since 1 belongs to R, which is equal to AR. So 1 will be a multiple of A. Okay. Now note that this much is not enough for us to conclude that B is a multiplicative inverse of A, because we have to also show that BA is equal to 1, and that cannot be concluded from just this, since the ring is not necessarily commutative. So we have to put more effort to prove that BA is equal to 1. Now note one thing, B cannot be equal to 0. Note that B is not equal to 0. Otherwise, if suppose B is equal to 0, then what do we get from here? From here we get 0 equal to A0 is equal to 1, and this would force the ring to be equal to the 0 ring, and this will contradict this assumption that the ring is non-zero. Why this makes us conclude that the ring is the 0 ring? You see, if you take any element, suppose this is true in a ring, 0 is equal to 1, then you take any element in the ring, say alpha belonging to the ring, then alpha can be written as alpha times 1, but since 1 is equal to 0, so alpha times 0, and we know that in any ring 0 times an element is 0, so alpha must be equal to 0, so the only element in R is 0. So if we have the additive identity and multiplicative identity to be equal in a ring, that ring must be the 0 ring. So that's why we cannot have this. Okay, so now B is non-zero because of this. So whatever we have done here with A, we can also do with B. So carrying out the above arguments, with B, we get BC is equal to 1 for some element C in R. What have we done here actually? Actually, we here carrying the above arguments means instead of AR we would be considering BR. Note that A was a non-zero element in the ring. So whatever we have concluded here, the same thing can now be concluded for B in place of A, because B is non-zero. So ultimately what we get, just like here we got AB is equal to 1 for some ring element B, here we will get BC is equal to 1 for some ring element C. Okay. Now the element C can be written like this. Should I write 1C or yes, I think 1C, yes. The element C can be written as 1 times C, but 1 is equal to AB and multiplication is associative, so A times BC, but BC is 1, so this is equal to A. So we see that the element C is nothing but A, hence BA is also equal to 1. So that's how we prove that not only is AB 1 but BA is also 1. So now we can say that B is the multiplicative inverse of A. Okay, hence B is the multiplicative inverse of A. So every non-zero element in the ring has a multiplicative inverse. Okay, now consider this. We have to prove that the ring is a division ring, right? That means we have to show that the non-zero elements form a group under multiplication. Okay, so actually the solution ends here itself, and I am going to end it here, but let us just see how the non-zero elements are forming a group under multiplication. What are the things we need? We need the 4 axioms to be satisfied. The first one is the closure axiom. If we take any 2 non-zero elements, say alpha and beta, in the ring, we want alpha beta to again be a non-zero element. If that is not true, that means alpha beta is equal to 0. But right now we have proved that non-zero elements have multiplicative inverses. Oh, keep in mind that these alpha and beta are non-zero. So applying the fact that alpha has an inverse, we can carry out a calculation like this: 1 times beta, so this is alpha inverse times alpha beta, but alpha beta is 0, so alpha inverse times 0, so this is equal to 0. So we get the contradiction that beta is also equal to 0, but we have chosen beta to be non-zero, so that's why alpha beta cannot be 0, it has to be non-zero. So product of 2 non-zero elements is again a non-zero element. So the non-zero elements are closed under multiplication. Multiplication is associative in the ring, so they are also associative for non-zero elements. Multiplicative identity, which is also known as the unit element, that is there, and every non-zero element has a multiplicative inverse. So that's it, all the 4 axioms have been satisfied. So the non-zero elements do form a group under multiplication, and as such the ring is a division ring. So this ends the first solution. Okay, so let us now see the second exercise. Exercise 2. Okay, now here there is an asterisk. It is a starred exercise, which means it will not be easy. It is not easy. Anyway, let us see what it says. Oh, by the way, before I write this exercise down, note that exercise 1, we have actually come across one problem which is like exercise 1, where we were given a commutative ring with unit element whose only two ideals are the zero ideal and the ring itself. There we had to prove that the excuse me, it's nothing. There we had to prove that the ring is a field. Now here we are not given that the ring is a commutative ring, but the other things are similar. The ring is still a non-zero ring, there is a unit element, and now instead of ideals or two-sided ideals, we now have two right ideals. There now we have to prove, or we proved right now, that the ring is a division ring. So exercise 1 is the non-commutative version of that one. I mean, we are not given that the ring is non-commutative, but it is not necessarily commutative. Okay, so let us now see the second one. Let R be a ring such that, here also same, two right ideals. The only right ideals of R are 0 and R itself. Okay, note that unlike the previous exercise, here we are not given that there is a unit element, that condition is not given. So the conclusion will also be somewhat different. Prove that either R is a division ring. So this is the conclusion of the previous exercise. This will be true, clearly you can see, if R has a unit element. But what happens if R does not have a unit element? That is also a possibility, right? Is a division ring, or that R is a ring with a finite number of elements. With a finite number of elements in which the product of any two elements is 0. For every A and B belonging to R. Okay. So here is the solution. One part of the solution is very easy. If R has a unit element, then by the previous exercise, R is a division ring. So that's what we are going to write first. By the previous exercise, R is a division ring if it has a unit element. Okay, so assume that R has no unit element. I need some ink. But what is our claim now? We claim that this implies AB is equal to 0 for some non-zero elements A and B in R. So the fact that we have assumed that R has no element, we are claiming that this will imply that there exist two non-zero elements in R, both non-zero, okay, but their product is 0. This is our claim now. Contrary to this, we are of course going to suppose the opposite. On the contrary, let us suppose that for any two means then the elements may be same also, or any two elements, or I should have written non-zero elements. A and B in R, AB is also not equal to 0. Note carefully, our claim says that there exist at least two non-zero elements whose product is 0. So the negation of this would be that for any two non-zero elements the product is non-zero. So that's what we are supposing now, and we are hoping for a contradiction. Okay, now this supposition that we have right now, this will give rise to cancellation loss. A consequence, yes. A consequence of this supposition is that for any three elements A, B and C in R, where say A is not equal to 0, we have two cancellation laws. AB is equal to AC implies B is equal to C, and BA is equal to CA implies also B is equal to C. You can probably understand how to verify these things, which I am not going to write here formally. I'll just show how this can be achieved. You see, suppose we have AB is equal to AC, okay, then using calculations, basic calculations in a ring, this implies A times B minus C is equal to 0. Now A is a non-zero element, okay, A is non-zero. If B minus C is also non-zero, then according to our supposition the product will be non-zero, but this is 0, that means B minus C cannot be non-zero, it has to be 0. So this implies B minus C is equal to 0, and so B is equal to C. Similarly, if BA is equal to CA, then also B is equal to C. So these two cancellation laws are consequences of this supposition. Okay, and we are going to make use of them. That's why we are mentioning them, and we name them, which is easily concluded. Okay, we call these implications. Two implications, this one and this one. We call these implications the cancellation laws. Oh man. Okay, now next what are we going to do? Let me see, this solution is fairly complicated. I cannot remember all the steps. Okay, now let me write in another paragraph. For any non-zero element D in R, this right ideal, it is just like that AR. Now we have DR is not equal to 0. Why? Because already we have seen, you see, we started the solution with A being non-zero, right? And we, not in this solution, sorry, I mean the previous one. There we came across this right ideal, which was also non-zero. And why is it non-zero? Oh, the reason for this to be non-zero is different from the reason why AR was non-zero, because there was a unit element. Here we are not, in fact here we don't have a unit element. Okay, so let me write the reason. It's different. Is non-zero because D square belongs to DR and D square is non-zero. What have we written here? You see, since D is after all an element in R, so in DR we have all the multiples of D. In particular, we can multiply D by D itself, getting D square. But since D is non-zero, and our supposition is that product of two non-zero elements is non-zero, any two non-zero elements, so D square is non-zero and D square belongs to DR. So that's why DR cannot be the zero ideal. And this implies that DR has to be equal to R. So DR is equal to R. Hence, now use the fact that D is in R. So D will be a multiple of D by some element. Hence, DED is equal to D for some, let me wrap this up, I need space, for some ED belonging to R. ED is just the thing is that we are going to prove that ED is actually, it acts as a unit element in R. That will give us the contradiction because we have assumed that R has no unit element. So because of that, I am considering this notation ED. You can write 1D also. The fact that D has been written as a subscript, it denotes the fact that this depends on D. It is coming because of the element D. Okay. Okay. Now, since ED is also not equal to 0, You see, if ED is 0, then D becomes 0, contradicting this one. So ED is not equal to 0. So we can carry out the same procedure with ED, not equal to 0. Considering the right ideal EDR, we similarly get what do we get here? EDF is equal to D. Now there we got ED by considering D as an element in R. So D is a multiple of D. But here again we are considering the fact that since D is in R, D will be a multiple of ED. Okay, there D was a multiple of D, here D is a multiple of ED. And there is some element F in R which makes this equation true for some F belonging to R. Okay, then consider this product DF. DF can be written as, in place of D we can write DED, right? F. Okay, and because of associativity I can write EDF. Okay, and this is equal to, now EDF is D, so that means we have D square. Okay, so what have we got? DF is equal to D square and D is non-zero, so we can use the cancellation law here. So by one of the cancellation laws we have F is equal to D. In brackets you can write, note that D is non-zero, and that's why we have been able to apply the cancellation law. So now F is equal to D. So what is the conclusion? So DED is equal to D, but at the same time EDD is also equal to D because F is equal to D. Just from this we cannot conclude that ED is a unit element, because this is true only for D, but what about other elements? So that is coming next. Now for any non-zero element, let us take G in R. We have, okay, now watch this calculation. G, EG, D. This is just a product, okay, product of three elements. You can probably understand what EG is. Whatever we have done here with DR, this right ideal, we can also do that same thing with GR. Thereby we would get an element EG such that GEG is equal to G, just like DED is equal to D. So this EG is, it plays the same role as ED for G. Okay, so now this product can be written as GEG D, but GEG is equal to G. Okay, now in place of D we can write ED D. We are using this one. So this is equal to GED D, right? Since G is non-zero and D is also non-zero, we can cancel. You see, now we have G E G D is equal to G E D D. So we can cancel G and D from both sides using the cancellation, both the cancellation laws. The cancellation laws imply that EG is equal to ED. Now because of this we can say that ED is actually a unit element. You see, you multiply any element, say you take any element in the ring alpha with ED. Since ED is equal to EG and oh by the way, alpha is non-zero. So since ED is equal to E alpha and alpha E alpha is alpha, so ED acts as a unit element. The other way around also, ED alpha is equal to E alpha alpha, which is also equal to alpha. Hence